Welcome back, subscribers. Welcome, new viewers. Today, I'm doing a viewer request from my Pluto book, and it will be about natal Pluto in Scorpio or the 8th house. And this is long, so I'm going to do my very best to move through it as swiftly as possible to make sure I get the entire thing on this video, because I have about 43 minutes until, I don't know why, my video always quits at about 43 minutes. So if any of you know why that is and how I can change that, please let me know. If not, and it stops in the middle and I haven't finished and you want the rest, you want me to do finish another video to finish the reading, I can absolutely do that. Send me a comment or an email, and I can also send you written copies on the email of your choice. Okay. Pluto in the 8th house or Scorpio. In the broadest possible sense, Scorpio in the 8th house are the archetypes through which all of us come face to face with the limits or parameters of who we are, as opposed to who we are not and cannot be. We each have a specific personality or nature that is unique. Our personality is a composite of many dynamics: intellectual, emotion, physical, and spiritual. The interaction of these dynamics determines our nature. Each individual experiences life and reality in his or her own unique way because of the specific orientation of his or her personality. Thus, we all experience the limitations or parameters of ourselves as opposed to that which we are not through the archetype of Scorpio and the 8th house. Because the essential evolutionary impulse is to grow or evolve, individuals with Pluto in the 8th house have necessarily desired to transform their personal limitations by forming relationships to anything that symbolized what they needed or desired in order to evolve beyond their personal limitations. This process implies something that they are not or do not already have. Thus, these individuals have experienced power and powerlessness as a result. The experience of power comes from that which these individuals already are, what they know and have experienced. The experience of powerlessness comes from that which they are not, what they do not know and have not experienced. The prior evolutionary impulse of Pluto in the 8th house demanded that these individuals experience their limitations while simultaneously metamorphosing those limitations to attain greater levels of personal growth. In other words, they cannot simply acknowledge the limitations and sit back and say, okay, that's it, folks, no more. This evolutionary impulse has enforced the awareness of the larger forces that exist in the universe, forces or power emanating from outside the individual. Evolutionary necessity demanded that these individuals merge with other sources of power in order to effect metamorphosis beyond their personal limitations. In other words, these individuals have learned how to absorb the power of whatever symbols of power with which they have formed a relationship into themselves. This absorption has promoted the required metamorphosis of personal limitations in such a way that these individuals become that which they have formed a relationship to. The specific nature of what symbolizes power to an individual, of what the individual feels that he or she needs in order to go beyond existing limitations, is relative to his or her evolutionary and karmic condition. Examples of common symbols that 8th house Pluto individuals are drawn to include death, sex, rituals of all kinds, magic, meditation, yoga, for example, experiences that are commonly considered taboo, relationships, money, status, a system or body of knowledge, mantras, symbolic diagrams, God, Satan, and so forth. Uniting the self with the symbol promotes an alchemical fusion that permits transmutation of an existing limitation. An intrinsic problem for 8th house individuals with respect to their need to unite with these kinds of symbols is one of compulsion. And I'm skipping ahead to certain, because there are specific examples that this is a general reading. So, the experience of power and powerlessness, of transforming limitations through the relationships formed with the symbols of power, has clinically promoted internal and external confrontations. These cycles of confrontation reflect the evolutionary impulse to eliminate and transform all limitations within the individual. Thus, these cycles lead into a continual death and rebirth of the individual's awareness and experience of him or herself within the totality of reality. This archetype correlates to reincarnation, the progressive need to eliminate all barriers, desires that are preventing a direct merging with the ultimate source of power. Yet, because of the dual desires coexisting in soul, there has also been the need to stabilize and secure the boundaries of most recent inner and outer metamorphosis. And I hope those of you that don't agree with reincarnation, don't believe in that, I hope you continue to read. This author happens to believe in that, and so just take that for what it is. Please, hopefully you'll keep listening. Okay, the desire to return to ultimate source of power manifests itself as the need to eliminate progressively all limitations preventing a total merging with that source. The desire for separateness manifests itself as the need to stabilize and secure the boundaries of the most recent metamorphic event in the individual's life. The most intense conflict of the dual desires of the soul occurs when Pluto is in the 8th house or in Scorpio. The resulting internal and external confrontations arise because of the limitations in the boundaries that have been secured. These boundaries have become areas of stagnation that block further growth. The intensity of the confrontations has been and will be in direct proportion to the degree of resistance that manifests itself through the desire for separateness. Resistance occurs because of the perceived threat to existing security patterns, which are based on how the individual is relating to his or herself, to others, and to reality at any point in time. This is, who am I? Excuse me, let me start again. This is, who I am. This is what I know. This is how I have constructed, organized, and interpreted myself and life in general. Again, the existing security patterns reflected in this way are a direct result of a metamorphic event that has occurred at a point previous to the existing security patterns. On a cyclic basis, those with Pluto in the 8th house will experience emotional, intellectual, physical, and spiritual confrontations in order to continue the journey of personal evolution. Let me say that one more time. On a cyclic basis, those with Pluto in the 8th house will experience emotional, intellectual, physical, and spiritual confrontations in order to continue the journey of personal evolution. The resulting metamorphosis, in whatever way it is experienced, reflects the fact that the desire to remove limitations, preventing a total merging with the ultimate source of power, has the upper hand, whether the individual likes it or not, whether one individual cooperates with it or not. So what that is saying is you are going to go through experiences. You must experience things firsthand, whatever is necessary for you to break any type of belief or stagnation or anything that's stopping you from your personal growth. Regardless of if you are currently consciously desiring to do that or not, you're going to go through that because your inner self, your true self, subconscious self is pushing you to do that because it's necessary for you, because you have Scorpio, Pluto, or Pluto in the 8th house, or both. If it's both, everything I'm reading is going to be double extreme, I guess. The function of confrontation also serves to produce inner psychoanalysis and an understanding of why we are the way we are. This knowledge can be applied to a specific moment in an individual's life. It can also be applied in a holistic way to discover the individual's essential behavioral patterns and orientations that control his or her entire life. And it can be applied to the whole of humanity to explain human consciousness in an archetypal way, as Carl Jung attempted to do. Thus, in the broadest possible sense, the 8th house and Scorpio are archetypes through which the human species examines and psychoanalyzes itself. Why are we like this? Why do we function this way? Why? On an individual level, it is the need for each of us to ask the same questions. Thus, the confrontations experienced by 8th house Pluto individuals promote personal as well as transpersonal knowledge. Because of prior life experiences and orientations, those with Pluto in the 8th house will come out of the womb asking why. Why life? Why death? Why this feeling? Why this emotion? Why this desire? Why did this happen? Why did they do that? And so forth. These individuals have been desiring to discover the bottom line of any situation that they have experienced and focused upon, the inner basis of why they work and function the way they do, and why others work and function the way they do. By attempting to understand their own and others' internal psychology through prior life efforts, 8th house Pluto individuals commonly come into this life with a natural understanding of the human psyche. Another way to look at when he says prior lives, because we know that that there is a fact of things being passed on from generation to generation. That's how you could also look at this, if that works better for you. In effect, they are natural psychologists, because these individuals have experienced so many internal and external confrontations over many lifetimes, because they have experienced so many fundamental metamorphoses. They will possess, in varying stages of development, knowledge pertaining to their own motivations, intentions, desires, and emotional patterns, and why they work as they do. The natural evolutionary condition or state of an individual will determine to what stage this knowledge has evolved. For those in the herd stage, this knowledge can be limited to themselves and those closest to them. In this state, this limited knowledge is normally some form of homespun psychology that cannot be expanded upon or applied beyond their own immediate environment. In addition, this stage of development will reflect conventional psychological wisdom that is a byproduct or distillation of collective homespun psychology that has evolved over a length of time relative to a specific culture that is collectively defined. For those in the herd state who are moving toward the individuated state, this conventional psychology will be applied to everyone. Those that have evolved well into the individuated state will possess a knowledge of individual human psychology. These individuals will understand that people are different and appreciate that each is constructed in their own way for their own reasons. These individuals can not only apply this understanding to themselves, but can also apply it to others. They will necessarily question, confront, and challenge conventional and accepted psychological knowledge. Those that are in the individuated state, yet moving toward the spiritual state, will possess knowledge of the essential psychological archetypes that symbolize and motivate human consciousness in general. They will understand themselves and others in this way. Individuals who have evolved into the spiritual state will possess knowledge of spiritual psychology that incorporates spiritual archetypes. By becoming involved with others, the 8th house Pluto individual will naturally be able to penetrate to the emotional, intellectual, spiritual, or physical core of the other in order to understand who they are, how they work, and to understand the causes of problems or blocks that are preventing further growth. This understanding will reflect the individual's own evolutionary capacity and condition. This ability creates a natural magnetism that attracts others who feel that the 8th house Pluto person can be of help in some way. Because of this, these individuals can hold power over others because others are giving them the power to do so. That's very important. Let me read that sentence again. 2 sentences. This ability creates a natural magnetism that attracts others who feel that the 8th house Pluto person can be of help in some way. Because of this, these individuals can hold power over others because others are giving them the power to do so. Negatively expressed, this individual may begin to manipulate others in order to be in a position of power. They will do this by compulsively focusing on the weakest areas within another in order to manipulate and control them. In this way, they can make another dependent upon them. Similarly, these individuals can focus on the weakest possible link in any expression or form of knowledge that is not of their own design in order to put it down. This is done because of the subconscious fear of having their own power undermined by another point of view or another person or persons who differ or challenge that which they are. Positively expressed, these individuals can use their natural psychological knowledge to understand and motivate others. They can help others see and understand how and why they are the way they are, what the basis of their motivations and desires are, and help them purge the negative emotional, intellectual, spiritual, or physical patterns that are preventing further growth. In so doing, these individuals can help others free themselves from the limitations of their inner and outer realities so that they can move more freely on their own natural evolutionary journeys. They will give power to others rather than use power to control them. In addition, these individuals will have more of a willingness and ability to understand the source and nature of their own limitations. Consequently, they will be much more able and willing to understand what they must do to metamorphose those limitations to greater levels of self-knowledge. They will naturally gravitate to specific symbols of power in order to effect this metamorphosis. A key point to understand at this juncture is that if the 8th house Pluto individual reacts negatively to transforming the limitations of his or her own egocentric identity and power, then the motivations, approach, and the symbolic sources of power will be very different from those of the individual who has reacted in a positive way to this evolutionary necessity. Whether the individual has effected a negative or positive reaction, the actual symbols of transformative power will reflect his or her natural evolutionary condition. In addition, the actual symbols used with respect to the evolutionary condition in the past will be reflected by the house and sign position of the south node. The south node of the moon, which those of you that have listened to me many times, you know I specialize in the south and north nodes of the moon, which is each and every one of our individual personal work to be done in this life. Let me read that again. In addition, the actual symbols used with respect to the evolutionary condition in the past will be reflected by the house and sign position of the south node and the house and sign position of its planetary ruler. Okay, let's move forward here. Okay. Pluto in the 8th house or Scorpio demands direct experience of any form, source, or symbol of transformative power, the prove it to me syndrome. There is a need for sensation and experience rather than belief or faith. So now, none of you don't feel bad, don't know guilt, because this is what you were born with. You were not going to just believe something because you read it or because to have faith in it. No, you were going to be forced, and you are, to experience it, to work through it, to feel it, taste it, experience it, no matter what, positive and negative experiences, so that you can grow, especially the negative ones, especially. These individuals need to see, feel, taste, touch, smell, or hear directly the object of the transformative symbols that they form relationship to. They need to merge, penetrate, and unite with the symbol that represents the source of power or object of their desire. Through direct experience, they merge with the transformative symbol and become the symbol itself. Negatively, the individual will attempt to control, manipulate, and use the symbol for egocentric ends. Positively, these individuals will allow the power of the transformative symbol to enter them, allowing for an alchemical fusion, a metamorphosis that takes place of its own accord. Some other examples of symbols that allow for an alchemical fusion to take place are Tai Chi, various forms of yoga, meditation, sex, merging one's resources with another, staring at a candle flame, and so forth. The symbols that promote this alchemical fusion can be almost anything. It is the person's approach, attitude, motivation, desire, and the evolutionary and karmic conditions that determine the selection of the specific symbols and the individual's positive or negative reactions to them that leads to the type of transformative experiences associated with them. And in that, again, he's saying it has everything to do with your south node and what your south node is about, what zodiac sign and house placement sign and the planets associated with those. Very important, essential. So doubly essential for all of you, because as I've spoke before and I just mentioned, and I'm going to mention one more time, our nodes of the moon, each and every one of our nodes of the moon is our personal work. And for you, there's even more emphasis on that. The specific planets and the zodiac sign and house placement sign. In the 8th house or in Scorpio, the evolutionary intent has demanded that the individual learn how to make choices concerning whom to be involved with and whom to commit to in a relationship. And again, I want to say, you will be forced, this is what it's saying, to go through experiences. You're not going to be able to just learn and read about it or have faith with your south nodes, whatever they are. For those of you who have a Scorpio Pluto or Pluto in the 8th house. Okay, very important. Individuals with Pluto in the 8th house have been learning to choose from among a variety of people another individual who resonated with their own needs, desires, karma, emotions, and their souls. Individuals with Pluto in the 8th house know what they need and have been learning to make the appropriate choices. Others who do not reflect these needs and who do not resonate with the individual will be excluded. This is what you're going to do. At a core level, among other needs and karmic issues, will be the need to either seek out a relationship with another who symbolizes something that the individual desires because of a perceived that is not being met, or to seek out an individual who is looking to the 8th house Pluto person as the transformative symbol in his or her life. Let's see what time it is. Okay. In either case, various degrees of use and manipulation will occur in order to gain that which is needed. In addition, either case implies emotional dependence. So this is what you will do. You will be dependent. They will be dependent if you have anyone else that is also having Scorpio, Pluto, or Pluto in the 8th house. Because of the evolutionary need to unite with symbols of transformative power, in this case, another person, we also have sexual union as a function of this kind of relationship. Sexual union can create a mutual penetration and bonding of the souls. It can create a metamorphosis of personal limitations because the two individuals have physically and symbolically penetrated each other. Is it not true that after sexual involvement with another, that the person is always inside of us in some way? We take in or take on the individuals with whom we have shared ourselves sexually. From a spiritual or metaphysical point of view, we also take on the karma of another with whom we become sexually involved. The exchange of karma occurs through the mutual exchange of sexual fluids and through the merging of the physical, emotional, and etheric bodies. In this way, a merging of the souls occurs. In the 2nd house and in Taurus, the biological instinct was procreation. The 8th house, or Scorpio, is the fulfillment of that instinct through pair bonding. The 2nd house is the instinct and isolation of masturbation, whereas the 8th house is sexual activity and union with another. In this way, the 8th house and Scorpio, because Scorpio is the natural house of the 8th house, is the true marriage house. In almost all cultures, a relationship is not considered a marriage until it is consummated. The inherent evolutionary and karmic problem generated by the 8th house Pluto is based on using or manipulating another in order to have one's own desires and needs met. Because of the ongoing evolutionary necessity for growth and metamorphosis, the needs and desires in the 8th house Pluto individual also keep changing. Thus, the relationships formed in this way usually are maintained only as long as the need exists. The duration of the relationship is different in each case, different with each person. Once the need has been fulfilled, there is no further use for the relationship. It has reached a point of stagnation or non-growth from the perspective of the 8th house Pluto person. At this juncture, these people face an evolutionary dilemma. On the one hand, the desire and need for commitment exists. On the other hand, there's the desire and need to grow. The question is, what to do? As this internal and external confrontation intensifies, the quote, demons of temptation will manifest themselves within the individual. Secret desires, secret attractions, phantom images and urges that would end or threaten the existing relationship if followed. This inner process naturally reflects itself outwardly in the form of sudden attractions to other people or situations that the individual feels a desire to pursue. These temptations can have tremendous power because they symbolize change. And again, what he's saying is that's what when you are done, when you have in whatever relationship that you are in, when that is complete, when you have gone as far as you can, when you have learned as much as you can from that person, or then you are going to move forward, whether you want to or not. It will happen and it'll come out in other ways. If you are stopping it from happening, then it's going to come out in what I just read. Often many of these people do not understand what is happening or why, and now you can know why. The need for stability and commitment may cause them to resist temptation. This resistance can be so complete that the temptations are driven into the dark and controlled recesses of the subconscious. Yet, because there is a need to transform the stagnation that they are experiencing in their life and in a relationship that reflects this stagnation, the demons live on. They seem to have a life of their own. The temptations pick up momentum and power in direct proportion to the resistance or unwillingness of the individual to change, to the unwillingness of a partner to change, or to the inability of the relationship to change. What to do? Let me see what time it is because I'm getting closer. Okay, we're still good. One possible course of action that many 8th house Pluto people have followed, male or female, leads to what I call the Black Widow archetype. Just as the female Black Widow spider magnetically draws the male to her in order to be impregnated and then kills the poor devil, of course, the male Black Widow was following his own evolutionary role and desire. So too can these individuals use, manipulate, and maintain a relationship for the duration of a need and then move on to the next relationship. Again, those of you with this placement, that is what you are going to be doing. And now you know why. And if you have a partner that also has this same placement, they could be doing the same thing or have done the same thing. So this is who they are too. This is what they are going to be driven to do. Often sex is used to get what they need. Sex may even be the reason for the involvement, although these individuals will resist otherwise, to themselves and others. Karmically, this creates a situation wherein these individuals will attract others with whom they have been involved in another life. If you believe in other lives. If you don't, that's all right. This situation is always unresolved because there are issues left over from a prior life connection. Compulsion will be the basis of the attraction, and in extreme cases, some form of violence can occur. In addition, a large percentage of the emotional behavior that is manifested towards each other in this life will be irrational behavior. The prior life separations have not normally gone well. One or both persons will have unconscious memories of being hurt, abused, manipulated, used, and then abandoned. You could also have Chiron, your own Chiron, or if this pertains to you or the other person, in the 7th house. You could have Chiron in Libra, because Chiron is the wounded healer. And the 7th house, and Libra is the natural house of the 7th house, which is all kinds of partnerships, relationships, which would include sexual relationships. Okay. For those of you that pertains to, that sentence that I just read. Let's see. In a typically negative 8th house Pluto way, the need to get back at the other creates this kind of irrational behavior that is vindictive. In nature, normally, like rational basis exists for such behavior in this life, although the playing of the old tapes can certainly make it appear to be so. So you could be triggered. This doesn't even have to have happened in this life, but you are triggered. You're afraid that this might happen, that your partner might do this or that, is what they're talking about. Again, Chiron in the 7th house and or Libra could be in your natal wheel, so you want to look for that. Another course of action that 8th house Pluto individuals have followed, male and female, leads to what I call the die-hard archetype, maintaining a situation to the bitter end, resisting all impulses or temptations to change it and going down with the ship. This situation ultimately promotes complete emotional withdrawal and an almost catatonic way of coping with their own life and life within the relationship. Okay, now I'm going to keep going, but it's going to stop. So those of you that want me to finish the reading on another second part 2 video, you're going to have to let me know. Otherwise, I won't do it. And or sending you also your written material. This course of action will not only be a reflection of the evolutionary need and desires to learn commitment, but will always occur with another with whom there have been prior life difficulties and or leavings. Thus, there is a need to fulfill this prior life karma in this kind of way. Again, I have a page to 3.5 pages left to go. So when it stops, let me know if you want me to do a part 2 to finish the reading. Another course of action, and the one to be recommended over the above, is to choose mates who are willing to evolve and change as the need presents itself. The 8th house Pluto individual should be willing to experience life as an open-ended proposition, and to be willing to risk that which constitutes security. Those following this course of action can learn how to communicate or release that which is promoting problems, stagnation, blocks, or temptations. They can learn how to do this for themselves and thus to do this within a relationship. This release promotes individual growth and the growth of the relationship. There are no more secrets. They can learn that some